I'd like to welcome you back. This is part two of the interview with Bob Friend from the Tuskegee Airman. Tell me about the movie. Did you like the movie, Red Tails?
I liked the movie okay. There was some Hollywood in it, but that's to be expected.
Mm-hmm. What did you like about it? You think it was inspirational?
Well, I think it showed, in some general terms, the kinds of things that we encountered in aerial combat. That was the main thing. The other, of course, and the producer, people too quick to jump on producers in situations like this. You remember that he had advisors, tech advisors, and they're the people who really and truthfully should have straightened out a lot of things that happened. For instance, I felt that showing all the tents lined up on both sides of the runway, you wouldn't do that. Ours were spread out far from the runway because you didn't want a crash on the runway to take out half your population. Mm-hmm. Not only that, you didn't want to concentrate the things either, because when we first moved there were instances of the Germans coming over at night and dropping bombs. If they hit and you're all clustered together, you know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. High loss. Mm-hmm. So I think that when you take into consideration the philosophy that he exercised, for instance, in portraying some of the incidents, what he did was to not take those stories of one individual. He took the stories of several individuals, clustered them
together,
and then exercised them as being one individual.
Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, I think a lot of people were, particularly black people, were inspired. I mean, the movie that I went to, they were applauding at the end.
Yes, and I've been to 3 of them.
Did people applaud?
And they did applaud. I was in Atlanta, and
how does that feel? How did it feel?
Felt fine.
You're so modest.
Felt fine, really.
What made you go into the military?
Well, flying in the first place. I was always interested in flying. As a youngster, I used to run around with windmills and things like that, wind wheels and paper windmills, and just making believe in the aircraft. And then when I went to school, I took those courses that would head in this direction, But of course, what I was learning, the things that mechanics and designers do, we used to repair Liberty engines and things like that. And I read a tremendous amount of pulp magazines back in the early 30s about World War I.
This was just after the Depression.
Yeah, during
the Depression.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And we had...
but you still dreamed.
Oh, goodness, yes. Oh, yes, I sure did. And then one day, this country had something that was called a civilian pilot training program that was really instituted because Lindbergh, in one of his trips, came back and he said, those people in Europe are planning something. They are teaching people to fly airplanes. They were using gliders and so forth in Germany. And at that time, Italy was a real power. They built some of the best flying boats that they were. A general named Balboa led a whole flight of those flying boats over to New York. They gave him great welcome, riding down Broadway and all those kind of things, Without really, truthfully, I think, other than the people who are in military positions, and they were the ones that would say, hey, wait, those could just as easily have been bombers.
You like to travel?
Yes, I do.
Where's your favorite place to go?
My favorite place to go is...
you ever been to Africa?
I was in Africa when we were overseas. Yeah, I had an incident in Africa, that an Arab youngster was working in our camp. You know, they do the kitchen help and things like that. So, and I had seen one movie with Charles Boyer where he said he was going to take this lady to the Casbah. So I said, boy, that must be something to see. So I asked him, and he says, I'll take you to the Casbah. So and we went out and went to place, and when we got there were big signs up, off limits to all uniformed Allied personnel. You know, wow. I said, I can't go in there. I said, it's off limits. He says, you can go in there. I said, I cannot go in there. I said, the MPs will be. He says, there's no MPs in there. MPs in the Casbah? So I said, well, that's another reason. Why would I want to go in there if that's what's going to happen?
Yeah.
He says, not to you. You're the same as an Arab.
Where else do you like to travel? Where do you like to go?
Well, I liked Italy.
Italy?
Yes. And here in the States, I traveled a bit, you know, because I like to play in bridge tournaments, and they are held all different places. So we go to New Orleans and Florida.
I want to know, at 92, how do you get up and go to work every day? That's what I want to know.
Thank God I do get up every day. Going to work is easy after you get up.
But
that's the thing.
A very strong work ethic. It comes from your parents?
Yes, I think so. I think it came primarily from my mother. You know, she was a different kind of person. She used to make hats and
okay,
all that sort of thing. Yeah, she was.
Benjamin O. Davis, your thoughts?
Yes. And a good boss. And he had a tougher job than most people stop to think about.
How so?
Well, when they formed other groups, where did they get the key personnel? These were the people that had been in the Air Force, had experience, and so forth. Benjamin Davis's people didn't have anything other than just coming out of flying school. And he had to take these people and put them in, and not only that, evaluate them and teach them, and if they didn't do the job, you should take the guy out of the job and put someone else in.
He had to fire some people. He had to get rid of some people.
Yes, he did. Sure.
So that means you're the best of the best.
I'm not necessarily the best of the best, but
you didn't get kicked out. You didn't get fired.
I worked hard. I worked hard.
Tell me more about Benjamin O. Davis.
Well, yeah, as I indicated, he went out of his way to be fair about a lot of things. For instance, the way our missions were sent to us, they came with teletype, and they would arrive at the group, like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, when we would have to hustle through to get the thing planned and then get the mission underway. Well, to be sure that the people didn't think he was picking easy missions when he went, he would always announce before the mission came up, he said, I'll fly tomorrow. He was that kind of man. He was sensitive to the fact that people would say, old man's going, must be an easy mission.
Not so.
Not so.
So he was fair.
Fair. And as I said, on putting people in the positions, he also realized that he had to train them. Now, I know that I spent a lot of time going over when I was still pilot, just to see how people were doing other jobs, because I knew sooner or later
you would have to do
I'd
that
be
job.
one of the people that had been over there that long.
How important was teamwork?
Absolutely necessary, and that's the key, really and truthfully, to most most air operations. Now you had teams, small teams like we call them elements, and you fought in twos, and then there were two elements and 4 airplanes, and then there was 16 generally in a squadron. You know, if you had a maximum effort, there'd be 20. But
and everybody knew everybody.
Well, we did in our group.
I think to me that's what stood out about in the movie. That you knew what he was going to do, and he knew what you were going to do.
Well, that's one of the things that's important. You know, to understand your responsibility in each and every one of these situations, and to do your best to carry out that responsibility. And Davis wasn't the one who came up with the idea that we need to stick with the bombers, you know, in order to ensure that they would get their job done. Well, but he was a man who knew how to carry out that order when it came from upstairs. Other people possibly treated it a little lightly. I don't know. I can't speak for what went on in other groups.
Okay. We're going to take this final pause and come back with the last segment. Keep watching BMORENEWS.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth.